Hey friends, I'm John Register. I am a former elite athlete. I was a two-time Olympic trials qualifier before a misstep in a hurdle race changed everything. I'm also a former combat Army veteran, served in Desert Storm, served my country with pride until that same injury led to my medical retirement. And I've been an executive leader both inside government systems and in the business world. Now, I am a professional keynote speaker and transformation coach, helping leaders like you amputate fear, embrace a new normal mindset to elevate their lives and leadership and take it to the next level. Now, this video think letter is for leaders who are walking through high stakes transitions. If you've just been promoted, just been hit with a major loss, or just been asked to lead through massive uncertainty, yeah, this is going to be for you. Because here's what I do know. Success in these moments isn't just about strategy. It's about soft skills, strength, clarity, courage, communication, and conviction. And too often we don't talk about that part. We talk about performance, we talk about the profit, we talk about processes and playbooks, but we don't talk enough about the internal work of transformation, the quiet moments between what was and what will be, because that helps with all of the above. That's where this series begins. Today, I'm sharing 3 short leadership monologues, each one rooted in my own journey, but deeply relevant to yours. These aren't motivational speeches. They're leadership mirrors, right? They're designed to help you reflect, reset, and rebuild with intentionality. Here's what we'll explore. First, we'll talk about how leadership begins in the space between the question and the response. It's about the power of the pause, the wisdom that comes not from always knowing the right answer, but from sitting in the question just long enough to find out what's true. That's where presence is born. That's where leaders connect, not just direct. Second, we'll unpack why adaptation is greater than overcoming, because real leadership doesn't mean pretending you aren't unaffected. It means being honest about the hit. And when reimagining what's possible in the aftermath, we don't bounce back, we build forward. And third, we'll land with the truth that liberation comes through commitment, not comfort. You don't grow when things are easy. You grow when you say, I'm done trying to go back. When you commit fully to the new, even when it's messy, awkward, or unfamiliar, that's when the next version of you is actually born. These 3 ideas, presence, adaptation, commitment, they are the foundation of the amputate to elevate philosophy, and they are the soft skills leaders need when the stakes are high and the old way won't work anymore so that you can drive the bottom line. So let's get into it. Because the world needs leaders who are honest about the journey, committed to the future, and willing to pause just long enough to find the answers that sets everyone else and yourself free. So let's elevate life together. Leadership begins in the space between the question and the response. Have you ever been caught off guard by a question that you did not expect, but one that held more weight than the person asking even realized? Take a listen to this part of my speech, this keynote speech that I gave to a client, and we will come back and unpack it just a bit. What is it that you believe overcame? I was sitting, you'll find all my stories happen in airports. I was sitting in the San Francisco International Airport. I'm reading a USA Today newspaper. I'm wearing shorts, get up there, which has exposed my artificial leg. 2 boys, about 5 years old and 7 years old, they're talking to their mother, their matriarch, and these 2 boys, they've made a new discovery. Mommy, look at that guy's leg. See that guy's leg? There goes Robot Man. I chuckled, but I went back to reading my USA Today newspaper. Then something else happened. There began to be this outer speak conversation that probably should have remained inner speak conversation from everyone else in the gate waiting area talking about the 2 boys, 5 and 7, who just discovered Robot Man. Impolite to stare, shut them up, get them out of here, bad mom. I say, wow, that's interesting. But I went back to reading my USA Today newspaper. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the woman, she gets up, she starts walking over my direction. I think she's gonna do like the old song says and just walk on by. But no, she stops, she leans in. Excuse me, sir, my children, they're absolutely fascinated by your artificial leg. It looks like you've overcome so much adversity. I mean, you're such an inspiration. Would you please tell them what happened? No one has ever come up to me in such a public setting asking me what's going on with my artificial leg. And in that space between a question and my response, I began to think about it. Why does she think I've overcome so much adversity? Maybe I was congenital and just born this way. Why does she think I'm such an inspiration? I could be an axe murderer. I'm not. Yet. Why was everybody else that had that outer speak conversation that probably should remain inner speak conversation, why were they now leaning in? And in that space between a question and my response, I found my answer. I did not overcome the adversity. What did those kids actually see? What was it about their curiosity? What was the wonder? That's when it hit me. We don't lead in the answers, we lead in the reckoning. See, leadership doesn't begin with confidence, it begins with curiosity. It begins when we're willing to ask ourselves, what story am I telling? Whose assumptions am I validating? Is my response shaping the moment or just escaping it? And I'll tell you something most people miss. The pause isn't the problem. The pause is the power. And too often leaders rush to fill the silence. We think decisive means immediate. We think confidence is measured in speed. It's not. It's measured in presence and how willing we are to examine the question before we launch the answer, to sit in the tension long enough to see what's beneath the surface. The space between the question and the response is where meaning lives. That's where mindset takes over from mindset. Mindset says, I've been here before. Here's the right thing to say. Here's the right thing to do. Mindsight says, what's really being asked here? Who and what do I need to see differently to answer truthfully? You know what most executives ask me when I finish this story? They say, John, what did you say to her? I said, ma'am, I don't think I've overcome what you think that you think I overcame, because if I had overcome the amputation of my left leg, I'd have my leg back. I let it land. I let her feel that. Then I shared my story, how I got injured, how I made a choice in a hospital bed that changed everything, losing 2 careers at one time, how my wife spoke the words, "It's just our new normal," when I was at my lowest point, and how in that moment I began to redefine what life, leadership, and identity would mean for me moving forward. But it didn't start with inspiration. It started with a pause. And that pause made space for truth. That pause made space for authenticity. That pause made space for humanity, which, by the way, is the currency of leadership today. So let me give you an insight you might not see on the first pass. When we rush answers, we rob people of their dignity. We impose our version of the story instead of inviting theirs. We fill the space that could be a bridge with noise that creates a wall. The executives who shape culture, who foster loyalty, who build trust, they do it by listening for what's not being said. They let silence work. They don't weaponize quick answers. They humanize the moment. And here's something deeper. The more responsibility you carry, the less you should rely on automatic answers. When the stakes are high, the default can be dangerous. So I'll ask you, what questions in your life right now are begging you not to rush? Whose story have you already written in your head without pausing to hear the truth? What conversation deserves a deeper mindset, not a faster mindset? Because I promise you, your greatest influence won't come from the brilliance of your answers. It will come from the integrity of your response. And the space in between, that's your moment. So don't waste it. We toss around the word overcome like it's a badge of honor, as if to overcome something means you've conquered it, crushed it, and moved past it without a scratch. Check out what I share with my audiences to bring them closer and into a different mindset. Take it away, John. 6.5 years earlier, I'm on May 24th, 1994. I'm lying in a hospital bed in Wichita, Kansas at the Wesley Medical Center. My wife, Alice, is holding on to my left hand. My parents, Don and Dolores, register on the opposite side of the bed. My son, John Jr., playing with a little toy train at the foot of the bed. He's 5 years old now. Dr. Randy Mullins, he comes in the room, he has a white lab coat on, a stethoscope around his neck, clipboard in his hand, says, Mr. Register, you have a tough choice to make. You can either keep your leg and use a walker or a wheelchair for the rest of your life, or I can amputate your leg, you can use a prosthesis for the rest of your life. What kind of choice is that? You see, if I overcame the amputation of my left leg, I would have my leg back. Think about that. If overcoming means restoring things to how they were before, then I haven't overcome a thing. No. What I've done is adapted. And I believe that's a more powerful word, a more honest word, and frankly, a more useful word than the words that leaders are using today. See, when I was lying in that hospital bed, holding on to my wife's hand, staring down two possible choices, keep the leg or live with chronic pain, and amputate it and build an entirely new way of living, overcoming wasn't even on the table. There was no winning that moment. There was only adapting. And here's the thing no one tells you. Adaptation is not weakness. It's not a second-rate consolation prize. It's not something that we do or you do because the plan A failed. Adaptation is leadership in motion. So let me break this down for you, especially for those of us leading teams through uncertainty, through transformation, and even loss. Overcoming is rooted in the past. Adaptation is rooted in possibility. Overcoming clings to what was. Adaptation reimagines what could be. And when you're in a leadership seat, people aren't looking to you to magically fix what's broken. They're looking to you to show them what's next. And that's not found in the rearview mirror. Even in my amputate to elevate action model, we're always looking for the next thing. Now, I want to be real with you. Adapting isn't glamorous. Doesn't look good in a headline. There's no champagne toast when you finally accept your new reality. There's grief, there's discomfort, and there's 1,000 little doubts whispering, you can't rebuild from here. But you can. In fact, you must. When I finally made the decision to amputate, what followed wasn't an instant rebound. I didn't go from hospital bed to silver medal overnight. I went from a wheelchair to parallel bars to a walker to crutches to a cane to freestanding, and then finally freestanding to running and jumping again. Then years later to competing, then eventually to the Paralympic podium. That journey was not about overcoming a leg amputation. It was about adapting my entire identity. My goals had to shift. My methods had to change. My sense of time, my relationship with progress had to evolve. That's the reality most leaders miss. We're addicted to the speed, obsessed with the bounce back. But adaptation isn't a bounce back, it's a build, and it takes time. So what does this mean for you, the executive leader navigating change right now? It means stop chasing what was. That version of your company, your industry, your role, even yourself, it's gone. Mourn it, and you need to, but don't idolize it. The most dangerous phrase a leader can speak is, I just want things to go back to the way they were. Have you ever heard that before? Well, guess what? They won't. And they shouldn't, because something has shifted, and it's your job to redefine the success to what it should look like right now. So maybe your team just came through a major reorganization. Maybe you lost a key client. Maybe the market moved without you. Whatever it is, you don't need to be the hero that overcomes. You need to be the architect that adapts. Ask your people, what can we build from here? What does this make possible? What version of us needs to emerge from this? You see, that's leadership. That's vision. That's where trust is earned. Not because you had all the answers, but because you told the truth about the challenge and led the charge anyway. I'll give you one final thought. The world doesn't need more heroes who overcame. It needs more humans who adapted and brought others with them. So if you're in the middle of your own reckoning moment, professionally or personally, don't waste your energy trying to erase what happened. Channel it, redefine what's possible, and start adapting forward. You'll be surprised at how high you can jump, even when life takes one of your legs. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you made a decision so irreversible, so final, that you couldn't go back? I'm not talking about strategy tweaks, not team reshuffles, not even stepping into a new role. I'm talking about a burn the ships moment. A this changes everything moment. For me, it came in a hospital room in Wichita, Kansas. Listen in to what I told Dr. Mullins, amazing doctor.
Renewal begins with a rebirth. Rebirth is exceptionally hard because now you're no longer the expert. Think about Don, who was the one that just won the Australian Open, woman? I'm trying to think of the, who was it? Madison Keys, Madison Keys. Madison Keys took herself out of the game to work on her serve. One thing that she wanted to do better. So she took herself out of being the expert in order to work on something that was going to give her dominance at the Australian Open. For at least 5 months, to work on one thing to make her better. How many times do we as executives and CEOs take ourselves out to work on something to get ourselves better?
I was holding my wife Alice's hand. My parents were across the bed. My little boy, John Jr., was playing with a little toy train at my feet. And Dr. Mullins looked at me in the eye and said, look, Mr. Register, you have a tough choice to make. You can either keep your leg and use a walker or a wheelchair for the rest of your life, or I can amputate your leg and you can learn to live with a prosthetic. Now listen, that's not a decision you think your way through. That's a decision you feel your way through because both options carry pain. But one offered the chance for possibility. So I said the words that sealed it, as you heard earlier. I know it has to be amputated. And in that moment, whether I realized it or not, I stepped out of the reckoning and into the renewal. I made the commitment. That's what a commitment actually is. You don't get the decision you did back. Not because I had figured it out, not because I was strong, but because I was done playing the what if game. See, in leadership, liberation doesn't come when the pain ends. It comes when the decision is made. When you stop bargaining with the past. When you stop saying, maybe we should salvage this. Can we still salvage this? Will we still salvage this? When you stop trying to tiptoe forward while dragging the weight of yesterday behind you, that's when growth happens. Growth requires commitment, and commitment requires a loss. I didn't just lose my leg, I lost my Olympic dream. I lost my military career. I lost the version of my life I had spent years building. But here's the paradox. That loss made room for something new. Not better, not worse, just new. Because renewal doesn't mean replacing what was, it means rebirthing what can be. And rebirth, it's messy. When I first got fitted for a prosthetic, I had to relearn everything. How to sit, how to balance, how to walk, how to move through space and time again. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't quick, it wasn't comfortable, but it was freeing because I'd already made the commitment. That's what commitments do. No fallback plan, no looking over my shoulder, no just in case options. That's what most leaders miss. They want the growth without the grief. They want the new beginning without the ending. They want the transformation, but on comfortable terms. That's not how this works. Commitment is the cost of liberation, and when you make it, everything shifts. It's an amputation. It hurts. People around you feel it. They trust you more, not because you're perfect, but because you're all in. They follow because they see someone who's not hedging, someone who's already burned the escape route. And here's something else I learned. Once you commit, you've got to give yourself and your people space and grace to grow. Because the new world that you're building, it's going to take some time. Too many executives make the right commitment, then sabotage it by demanding instant results. They want change to be fast. They want change to be clean and efficient. But renewal is none of those things. It's slow, sometimes clumsy. It's frustrating and absolutely necessary because anything born too fast, probably isn't fully alive. So I'm asking you today, what decision are you circling but not committing to? What change do you know needs to happen, but you keep waiting for a more comfortable time? What old normal are you still secretly hoping will come back? Because the truth is this, if you can still go back, you haven't committed. And if you haven't committed, you're not free. But once you do, that's when the game changes. That's when the real elevation begins. So don't settle for comfort. Commit. Burn the plan B, and then give yourself the time and space to build the future that your old version of you couldn't even imagine. Because liberation isn't found in the moment that you heal, it's found in the moment you decide to never go back. And that's when you rise. And one more thing about that commitment and the burn the ships. Remember, when they burned the ships, they had a plan. So don't burn the ships if you don't have a good plan. Hey, before you close the tab or scroll to the next thing, let me leave you with this insight. Leadership isn't a title, it's a choice. It's choosing presence over reaction, adaptation over perfection, commitment over comfort. If anything in today's Think Letter stirred something in you, maybe you're sitting in a pause moment right now. Maybe you've been trying to go back to something that no longer fits. Or maybe you're standing at the edge of something big, a big commitment, and you just need someone to say, yeah, it's time. If that's you, then I want to personally invite you to join me for the next Elevate Life Think Letter, where we'll go even deeper. We go on these monthly calls for leadership. But more than that, I want to invite you into the accountability sessions. That's where we don't just talk leadership, we live it. We workshop it. We apply it to real decisions, real moments, and real transitions. Because transformation doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in community, with clarity and accountability, walking hand in hand. So don't just consume this content, commit to it. Subscribe, drop a comment, share this with someone in your life who's navigating a high-stakes moment themselves, and then join me live. Until then, go forth, inspire your world, and I'll see you on the next chapter. Bye for now.